the service that we're having today is one that a member of Elliott Chapel, a Unitarian Universalist church in Kirkwood, Missouri, described to me well over 20 years ago, and it became one of my favorite ideas once I adapted it. It's been celebrated at Elliott Chapel since 1976, and our member Mike Trudeau was there for a while in that church and experienced this bread communion ceremony and remembers it pretty much like we're planning to do it today. And we had a little chat about that. So like the flower communion and the water communion, it's one of our UU communions, a little different than some other communions, but you know, communion is coming together in community. So it's this particular communion, as well as those others, has really spread across our UU world, and it's celebrated today in lots and lots of Unitarian Universalist churches. And it's a multi-generational service because what we know about engaging the senses, seeing things, smelling things, tasting things, is good for all ages and helps us be together more as a multi-generational community. So some of the words that come from that service. From the beginning of time, the sign of friendship and welcome reception of strangers has been the breaking of bread and the shared cup. In fact, the word companion comes from the Latin words meaning with and bread, or together with bread. And so a companion could be someone with whom you share or break bread. We are a gathered community of friends and strangers. As we celebrate our bread communion today, we may be reminded of the nourishment we bring to one another through our friendship and through our loving commitment to the community we create together in this place. As this bread was once scattered across the fields and thence through the effort of work gathered and brought forth to this table as nourishment, so may the people of our common earth, scattered across the fields of woe, be gathered through the marvelous effort of mercy into a world where neither nourishment nor justice nor love is rare. The ingredients of bread include corn, wheat, rice, symbolizing the staff and strength of life, water, representing freshness and purity, yeast, raising the spirit, sugar, providing for the growth of the yeast, salt, setting limits for the growth of the yeast and the eggs, that enrich and enliven the texture of the bread. And we have people here who bake amazing bread, so you probably know all of that. Right? Some of you people. Oh. So all these ingredients are mixed and kneaded and punched down for a finer quality and then baked and cooled. So now our common table is laden with some breads of people's different heritages, and if you did not know to bring bread today, you missed that in the announcements, but you still want to tell us a story about bread, I'll invite you to do that in just a minute too. But we've brought this together. So bread, like life, must be broken to be whole. It's through opening ourselves to the possibilities of pain and sorrow, as well as joy and celebration, that we come to experience life in its fullness and become ourselves whole people, capable of understanding and empathy, of mercy and justice. It is the times of brokenness that lead us to fulfill a purpose, to embrace and nourish the bittersweet of life. So if you have come today with the bread that's laying on the table, I'm inviting you, or you left your bread at home, or you didn't know we were going to do this today. It's out there? The bread is out there? Oh, well, if you like, you can get the bread and bring it in here. We could save it for the potluck if you want, but if you've brought bread today and you'd like to share the story, we could put it out here for people to look at. We might have to adapt this ceremony in a minute to see what you want to do with the bread that's out there, because there's a potluck afterwards. There's several out there?
No, there's several here.
There's several here. So, we can just go with this, or if you've got bread out there that you intended to be on this table, you can go get it, okay? When the stories start, you can run and go get the bread. So the idea is that many of us have some tradition of bread for the holidays, or just any day. My mother used to make what we called fruitcake, and all my life people would go, "Ooh, fruitcake," and I would be insulted because this fruitcake that my mother made was absolutely fabulous. It turns out that, a lot of people don't like that candied fruit that you buy, but that was in it. But it wasn't really fruitcake. What she actually made was, I think, banana bread, and then she put that fruit in there. So I bought some banana bread from one of the wonderful bakers here at the last Sunday Sweets Day, and when I bit into it, it was like home to me. There was that flavor of that amazing bread that my mom always made every holiday, and it just brought all those wonderful memories back to me. So that's what bread can do. So if you have bread on the table or you have a story about bread, I'm going to invite you to come and share, and then after a little bit we'll partake. We'll pour some juice and we'll have some bread, and you can just come by rows or however, and if you need someone to bring you some bread, raise your hand and we'll serve you at your seat. All right?
I brought some bread, and I am not a big bread baker. I did in college bake some bread, and then I got a bread machine, and I did that a couple times in my early married life. But Emma Mulvaney shared with me this wonderful 5-minute bread recipe, and the ingredients are just flour, water, salt, and yeast. And you just mix it in the bowl and put it in a container in the refrigerator, and whenever you want to have bread, you take a clump out and form it into a loaf. You don't do any kneading or anything. You form it into a loaf, and then you bake it at a high temperature. And it is so wonderful. I mean, I've used it for pizza crust, and just breaking it apart or whatever, it's nice and crusty and kind of a rustic loaf. And I brought some little rolls and sliced them up, and I hope you all enjoy it, and I'm happy to share the recipe with you. And I'm so grateful to Emma for the recipe and the encouragement.
Me too.
So Maeve and I brought a barnbrack, which is a traditional Halloween cake. And as Halloween is the Irish Harvest Festival, I figure it's still okay up to Thanksgiving. So around Halloween, we have several different types of food that we eat before we go out trick-or-treating. A lot of them are to encourage kids to eat something healthy before they go out. But anyway, this bread is a sweet bread. It's a fruit cake, and we put charms in it. So as you're eating it, you find a charm, and it'll predict the future. Or it's like a divination cake, or it'll maybe just give you a warning about something to watch out for. So I have the charms. I didn't bake them into the cake this time, just in case anybody was afraid of breaking a tooth or anything. So they're on the side. So if you're brave enough, you can pick one of the charms. They're all wrapped up in paper, and you can see what your future it holds for you. So Maeve is going to tell you what they mean.
The stick means health, the money means rich, the pea means hunger, the ring means love, the rag means poverty.
Okay, so if you get one of those charms, you might want to just keep an eye out for those things and help ward it off.
So my mother never made bread, and When I was at home with my two little babies as a new mother, I found that there was a lot of time when people were sleeping. And I decided to try and make the bread that my father had loved so much, which my mother bought. It was anadama bread, which is a corn meal and molasses bread. And I did learn how to make it. And every time I have it now, I just think of my dad, whom I loved so much, and my little babies I loved so much, and those sweet, sweet days of my little children and my fire in the wood stove and raising bread and kneading bread and learning how to do new things. And I didn't bring any, sorry. But that's my bread story.
I have a story without bread. So Melissa, my wife, used to make bread with a group of women that they used for communion at their church. It was a large church, and it was a regular thing that they would do this for Sunday communion. It was wonderful. It was a whole wheat bread and delicious. Well, at this point within my family, there are a lot of allergies and things we are avoiding, like white flour, any wheat flour, any grain, gluten, eggs, sugar, all the things that go into bread we're avoiding. But Melissa has been, over the last several weeks, practicing recipes that meet the family's needs. And so what that tells me is that we may have wonderful traditions that we love. We can keep the traditions and change how we make those traditions happen.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael. I am the member from Elliott Chapel who got to experience their wonderful bread communion. So there's a table in the middle of our sanctuary full of food. So you need to get up and come and help yourself to the food.
Right. And Kate just went to get tongs so that we don't have to put our fingers on the food.
Well, use your fingers. We all love each other here. Anyway, I have a very unusual story, and it ties into bread, and it also ties into Thanksgiving. From a very early age, I remember in our kitchen at home, there was this drawer, and in it was a brown paper bag, and we used to put leftover bread slices in the brown paper bag. And then I learned that when the bag got full at Thanksgiving time, my mom makes this wonderful stuffing for the turkey. She used that bread to make her stuffing. But to me, it was always so strange. We were taking ends of the loaf of the bread and putting them in this brown paper bag in the drawer. And I was like, what on earth is this hard bread for? But Mom used it to make her stuffing at Thanksgiving. So that was my story.
For cranberry pumpkin bread that my daughter's grandmother gave to us years ago. And me being me, I modified it with whole wheat flour and applesauce instead of oil, and tried to make it healthier, but don't tell my kids. And so every Thanksgiving and Christmas, as that time of year rolled around, that's all I heard. Well, we ate all the pumpkin bread. We need more pumpkin bread. When they would come to visit from Tennessee, where they now live, it's where's the pumpkin bread? And I'll be making it at New Year's this year because that's when they're coming to visit. But in the meantime, I really wanted to share some of that pumpkin bread with you. But technical difficulties and the illness of my daughter and her husband and the children and many other things got in the way. So instead of saying that I just didn't have time to bake bread, I'm going to say that I was really concerned about our UU values and in particular social justice. And that all around us, we see that labor is suffering. People are losing their jobs due to automation. So I very carefully went to a store that employs not self-serve cash registers, but real people, that sells bread that is actually handmade by someone who does the baking. So you see, it wasn't laziness or forgetfulness at all.
Well, I also have a bread story. It's not quite as positive as everybody else's bread story. And when I smell bread in the store, I often think of it. In my early years of teaching, I had decided with a group of first graders we were going to bake bread. And we were going to knead it. And I had this wonderful recipe, and we talked about it and everything. And so this morning I get up very early and I get ready to get the bread to rise and everything, and I take it to school. Well, you realize in a school, if you use the school lunchroom, whatever you're going to cook has to go in the oven by 10:30. It has to come out at 1 o'clock exactly, because the people in the kitchen either go home and they have to, it's just a time schedule. Well, of course, my bread didn't rise in time. So that day was gone. So the next day I decided at home I would give the bread a little bit of push, So I kind of put it in a warm oven. Well, we got to school and it rose too early. So therefore we could not put that in the oven the next day. Well, by the third day, every parent was writing me a note to give me a bread recipe that they were sure would come and on time. Well, about the fifth time, we finally were able to put the bread in the oven at the time. It came out on time, and we ate it. I never made bread again.
My bread story has to do with the heels of the bread. And since my girls were little and my children were little, we've always taken the heels of the bread and put them outside and chopped them up for the birds and the critters. And when recently, about a year ago, I realized I could keep those and use those to make some like bread pudding or like all good kind of good stuff. And my son looks at me disappointed and he goes, "Who's going to take care of the birds?" And I was like, never mind. We'll just keep taking the heels and putting them out. But just the important message, of course, of taking care of all of God or all of the world's creation.
Well, I also brought pumpkin bread that my Millie made, because I still can't stir or anything. And so that, she did a pretty good job, despite the fact that I forgot to read the liquid part of the ingredients out to her, so we had to put that in last. Oh, I'm sorry. You can hear me now. Oh, okay. Well, you're standing next to me. But it made me wish that she was still little, because we kept her a lot, and we had a stool, and she would stand on it when she was like 3 years old, they're about that big. And she loved to roll out the dough. We had the toughest biscuits in Pensacola, because she rolled that dough out, and who cares, But anyway, time moves on, and now she's taller than me.
Good morning. Am I doing it right? I was sitting here thinking and listening to all these stories and trying to think of a bread that was significant in my family, and I could not think of anything until it hit me like lightning, the cornbread that my great-grandfather used to make. And I was very fortunate that I grew up with my great-grandparents, and I had them in my life for up until high school. So Granddaddy would always make cornbread, but what I found later in life that was different about this cornbread, it wasn't, the baked in the oven and this nice thick cornbread. He would make it with the mix, and then he would fry it. in the pan. So I grew up with this delicious cornbread that had this lovely, nice, crispy crust, and I would always eat the crust first and then the rest of the cornbread, and I absolutely loved it. And then I was devastated later in life to figure out that that's not the way everybody makes it. So when I go to like Cracker Barrel and I try to order cornbread and they give me this big, thick piece, I'm like, this is not cornbread. But he just made it his way, and I have not been able to perfect that cornbread as yet, so here's hoping for the future. But yes, that's my bread story. Thanks.
So did we finish all the stories? You have a story? All right.
Can I do it with my mouth full?
That's the problem with this. I haven't quite figured out the logistics of this yet.
Well, I'm a buyer, not a baker, and my mother was not a baker and not even a buyer because, well, I guess she was, but it was different. We owned a grocery store, and it was my mother's grocery store. She ran it completely. My dad worked in the paper mill. So it was her grocery store, and I don't think it would have ever in a million years have occurred to my mother to even think about baking bread because she was working 7 to 7. And so our bread was wholesome sliced bread, white bread, as was typical of probably everyone in Bogalusa, Louisiana at that time. But the special bread that occurred to me that I was thinking, well, we didn't have any special bread, but actually we bought Italian bread from a little bakery nearby. And I realized that it had several associations with me, for me. One is that being Catholic in this town, most of my friends were Italian, and I have had an affinity for Italians and things Italian ever since. But the other is, I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and thankfully, we had different attractions to the inside of the bread and the outside of the bread. And I was very much an inside of the bread person, and I liked the digging in. And somehow it all balanced out. And I realized I even married a man who liked the outside of the bread. So for 45 years, that worked real well. Although I grew up a little bit. I do also like the outside of the bread now, but not the end. And he always liked the end. Or said he did anyway. So my bread story doesn't quite fit the standard, but that's it.
This is not quite a bread story, but a story about bread. When I first came back to Pensacola in 1984, I bicycled around East Hill, and I came upon a bakery on Gonzales Street called Cracker Barrel Bakery. So I went in and talked to the proprietor, Stanley Schmerkin, and found out about how Stanley got into the bread business, coming down from New York, originally being here to sell his family's clothing line. But when he retired from that, he decided to get into the bakery business with his brother. And so they had a bakery just beyond the Sacred Heart building on Gonzales Street, east of 12th Avenue. So Stanley asked me to come out and go on the boat with him. So every Sunday for many years, I would go out and take a boat ride with Stanley. And then about 15 years ago, he sold his boat and also got out of the bakery business, sold the bakery. Now, the reason I bring it up today is that about 10 days ago, there was a notice in the obituary page that Stanley had died. And so about 6 or 8 days ago, I went to a Jewish burial in a cemetery that I had never seen before. But it was very interesting. So that was kind of a memorial to Stanley Schmerkin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating and coming to my rescue with your stories. So our closing hymn is number 407. Is that right? Am I remembering? It's one I really like a lot to sing. It comes out of the gospel tradition, sort of, and kind of a civil rights sort of song, too. But it fits so beautifully.
Choir.
Right, and the choir's coming up, and if you'd like to stand up, and this is a time if you want to dance around a little bit, that's okay. We can embrace our Pentecostal if we'd like. 407. Is this on? Yes. So as we leave this space together, may we share with the world our bounty. And where there is hunger, may there be bread. And where there is not bread, may there be hunger for justice. Let us go in peace.